All right, welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. You know how we do it around here. We get the source material out, we dig in, and we see what we can uncover together, right?
Always a good time for a deep dive.
So today, we're going to be looking at this idea of spiritual inheritance
Okay.
and how it's presented in specifically the book of Ephesians.
All right, Ephesians.
Now, to kind of kick things off, I thought it'd be interesting to share this little story from one of the sources we've been looking at. It's about a church sexton.
Okay.
You know, the person who takes care of the church building, and a new pastor who had just arrived at the church.
Okay, I like where this is going. I love a good anecdote to set the stage.
Yeah, well, so this new preacher arrives at the church, and naturally everyone's curious about him. You know how it is.
Sure, new leadership always brings a bit of buzz.
Right, exactly. So somebody goes up to the sexton who's been there for, like, years, seen it all, and they ask him, so what do you think of the new preacher?
I'm on the edge of my seat already. What'd the sexton say?
And the sexton says, well, I like him pretty well, but when it comes to praying, the former preacher asks the Lord for things the new preacher doesn't even know the Lord's got.
Wow, that's quite the observation.
I know. So I'm curious to get your take on that. What do you think the sexton was getting at?
Well, I think it speaks to a mindset, It suggests that maybe this new preacher isn't fully aware of the vastness of God's provision, of all that's already available to us.
That's an interesting perspective. So you're saying it's not that God hasn't already provided those things, but that the new preacher doesn't even realize it.
Exactly. And I think that's a point that's echoed throughout Ephesians. Paul really emphasizes this idea of believers having this incredible inheritance in Christ, but often not fully grasping its extent.
You know, that actually reminds me of a specific verse from Ephesians that our source highlights. It's Ephesians 3.16. Let me see if I can remember how it goes. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being.
Yes, that's the one. And it's right in line with what we're talking about. Paul's praying that the Ephesians will experience the power of God's Spirit working within them.
And it's not just any kind of power, right? It's the power that comes from understanding the fullness of what we have in Christ, the fullness of our spiritual inheritance.
Absolutely. Paul goes on to describe 3 specific things he's praying for them to understand, and each one sheds light on this inheritance. He prays for them to know the hope of Christ's calling, the riches of the glory of his inheritance, and the exceeding greatness of his power to usward who believe.
Okay, so we've got these 3 powerful concepts here. Let's unpack them a bit. Starting with the hope of Christ's calling. What does it mean to truly grasp that hope?
Well, when you think about calling, it's about purpose, isn't it?
For sure.
It's that sense of being chosen for something, of having a unique role to play. And the hope that's attached to Christ's calling is the unshakable belief that this purpose is not only good, but it's also leading us towards something incredible.
So it's not just about knowing you have a purpose, but also having this deep confidence that it's a purpose worth living for.
Exactly. It's about living with that certainty that your life has meaning, significance, and that you're moving towards something truly extraordinary.
Okay, I'm with you on that one. And then there's this idea of the riches of the glory of his inheritance. When I hear riches, I immediately think of material wealth, But I have a feeling it's much deeper than that in this context.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's way more than just material possessions. It's about the abundance of spiritual and emotional blessings that come with being a child of God.
So what are some of these riches that we might be overlooking?
Well, think about it. We have access to peace that defies logic, a joy that springs from a deep well within, a sense of belonging that transcends earthly ties. We have forgiveness, grace, mercy, and a love that knows no bounds. That's true wealth, wouldn't you say?
Those are riches that no amount of money can buy.
Precisely, and they're available to every believer right here, right now.
Now, the last phrase Paul mentions is the exceeding greatness of his power to usward who believe. That one really gets me thinking, what kind of power are we talking about here?
It's not about power in the worldly sense, like dominance or control over others.
Right, that's what I was thinking too.
It's about the power to live a transformed life, to overcome obstacles, to break free from the things that hold us back.
So it's more about inner strength, about being empowered to live out our faith in a real and tangible way.
Exactly. It's the power to say no to temptation, to stand firm in our convictions, to love unconditionally even when it's hard. It's the power to persevere when we face challenges, to find hope in the midst of despair, and to keep moving forward even when we feel like giving up.
So it's the power to actually live out the hope and the riches that we've been talking about.
Precisely. And our sources really emphasize that this power is available to each and every one of us.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. For those listening who might be feeling a little overwhelmed, what would you say is the most important thing for them to remember?
I'd say the most crucial takeaway is this. You have an incredible inheritance waiting for you in Christ. It's a legacy of hope, a treasure trove of blessings, and a wellspring of power. But it's not something that's just handed to you. You have to choose to step into it, to actively cultivate it, and to allow it to transform your life.
That's such a powerful reminder. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this question. If you truly believed in the exceeding greatness of God's power working in you, what would your life look like? How would your thoughts, your actions, your relationships be different?
That's a great question to ponder.
It is, isn't it? Thanks for joining us on another deep dive, everyone. We'll see you next time.